Hey everybody, one of the GMG reviews. Today we're taking a look at The Fall of Rothenburg, a narrative solo or co-op campaign for 1490 Doom. Now this is the creation of Magos Buer from Buer Games, and is a sort of like add-on to the core rulebook, which has been successfully crowdfunded in like a physical copy, and is available digitally right now with all the STLs for the lovely miniatures that you can see flash on the screen behind me. And this particular book is actually going to be almost akin to like a adventure module for something like Dungeons and Dragons or any tabletop RPG, except this is a miniature war game. So if you played other games in this genre, things like Rangers of Shadow Deep, Frostgrave, games that basically allow you to use your miniature collection to tell a story, then this might be familiar for you. But for those of you that haven't, this is a little spotlight on this game today. You play as a man and his dog, and I don't mean Crockett from Miami Vice and his dog, which is a horrifying sci-fi post-apocalyptic movie. If you've never seen it before, it's a psychic dog. There's a whole bunch of like weird breeding program stuff that happens. Anyway, short story long, The Fall of Rothenburg is the sort of like survival quest story in the 4-year period in which the world ends in the 1490 Doom universe of Rothenburg, of a city. And as you can see, it's divided into several different parts. So what you need to play this game is the core rules, some miniatures for Wilhelm and Berenger, the dog, and a host of other characters, including an evil fallen knight. And all the same core material stuff that you used to play 1490 Doom. Now, if you want to check out a review of 1490 Doom, it's on the Indie Hour previously, and there will be a Let's Play coming in about 3-ish weeks. You'll be able to see that game get played. Tao and I played through the first half of the missions from the rulebook, and I have intentions to do this campaign as well. But yeah, if you want to see the core mechanics, you can jump in, or you can download them from the site, as well as STLs to print for your models. The campaign will also introduce unique rules and concepts used only during solo and campaign play, particularly focus. This system is used to operate the NPC models. You'll also see an increased level of detail in each scenario, and they can include several charred special events or things that happen like before or after the game. All right, Rothenburg. Rothenburg in the year 1490, as the creeping death begins to like cover Europe, the universe of this game. Basically, you're constantly trying to climb to higher and higher places to escape a poisonous fog that makes everything sick, kills all the crops, and is slowly ending the world. It was a bastion of order and prosperity. Its stone walls and silent witness to centuries of noble legacy. At its heart was Wilhelm, the last of Rothenburg's knights, a figure of honor, strength, and unwavering loyalty. And for decades, he had defended the city's people, guarded its walls, and upheld its traditions. His courage was the bedrock of Rothenburg's safety. His name was spoken with reverence in every home, but now even Wilhelm's bravery was not enough to shield Rothenburg from the horror that began to creep through its gates. And this is basically telling the story with like the city sort of like breaking, farms becoming abandoned, trade ceasing. The city becomes a shell of what it was, and Wilhelm can see the toll of despair in the face of his men, the loyalty that had once bound them to him weakening under the weight of their own grief and fear. Yet Wilhelm remained steadfast, clinging to a flicker of hope that somehow he could hold the city together. But even as his heart bled, bitterness began to take root in his once closest allies. Otto, a captain of the guard, had served as Wilhelm's aide for years, a friend who had shared his battles and victories, yet the creeping death had claimed his own children, leaving him with only the cold embers of resentment. He watched as Wilhelm clung to the ideals and felt his faith in his commander turn to ash. In Wilhelm's resolve, Otto saw only futility, he began to view his loyalty as a mask for weakness, his honor as a blindfold to truth, and that Rothenburg was already lost. And this is the betrayal, basically. We have kind of an Iago-style character that betrays him. So, enemy focus. The idea here is that each of the models that are going to be non-player models on the table will have a thing that they're trying to do. So melee focus could be attacking people up close. Range focus, of course, shooting them from far away. Loot could be like stealing something or guarding loot. And then guard focus would be like to patrol an area and try and keep you from getting into it. And finally, special characters, they can have their own unique patterns of behavior based on the story. And so you're going to prioritize actions based on the focus, and everything will have a tag over the course of the mission. And as you can see here, those tags will then dictate your 2 actions. So in a game of 14 Doom, you might have, the desire to do move action. That would allow you to move with speed in inches. Then follow that with a climb action, which might make a skill test and allow you to climb. These guys will basically, you have to use your best judgment based on these rules as to what they're going to try and do. But it gives you some guidelines. And I like this because a lot of times solo and co-op games, the player characters in the games are kind of like a magnet. They're a locus, and everything just rushes towards them. There might be some simple AI mechanics, like if they can't see you, or if you perform certain actions, they become alert or not alert. But most games use more miniatures than probably this one does, and they require you to have a kind of more generic or simple NPC style of actions. A good example right now is in Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team. There's a pretty rudimentary system of NPCs for the NPOs, the non-player operatives in the table. This game gives you a little bit more grit. And actually, those designers honestly could read something like this as a great example of just giving guidelines to the players, because if you're playing a solo and co-op game, you're not trying to win, you're trying to tell a story. So giving guidelines on how they should act is a really, it's a better way than saying, these are the hard and fast rules. Because they say like, haha, I defeated the game by myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's not telling a story. It's kind of missing the point of like solo and cooperative gameplay. All right, turn order. So obviously there's no person to go back and forth deploying models activate models against in this version. So for these solo rules, there'll be a player activation phase. And at the end of that activation, once Willem has completed his actions, Berenger or a recruited unit can activate next. And once you've activated all your models, move to the next activating enemy. So you're basically going to, it turns from alternating activation, which it is in the core of 1490 Doom, to being a I go, you go, with all of the player characters going first, and then the remaining enemies going afterwards. Then you can see the order they go in. So melee focused characters will activate first, then range focused, then loot focused, then guard, and then special characters will happen last. Giving you a good idea to how everybody operates. I should mention the illustrations in this, speaking of Rangers Shadow Deep, are all done by Barrett Stanley, the wonderful illustrator that's worked with Joe on Rangers, and it's great to see his work here again. And then we have our Doom Warriors. So some characters you can find, and there's actually a branching narrative in this, which I really like. But for Wilhelm and Berengar, Wilhelm must be your captain. They're a Doom company in the standard game if they are the only members of the founding company. So you can use these in regular games of 1490 Doom if you're just using them. And there are some neat looking STLs that'll show you at the end of this for you to print off to use them. And your dog cannot be the captain. It's funny. I used to get crap for when I wrote Last Days that people didn't like the rules I wrote for dogs because they think their dogs can open doors and learn skills and stuff like that. They wanted their dogs to be able to get all the like character mechanics. I just love that Berengar can never be the captain of the Doom company. See, somebody else doesn't let your dogs get experience. I guess he can get experience. He just can't be the captain. Can't be in charge. He's on a psychic dog, like in A Boy and His Dog. Knights. You also find the knight in this section, as Wilhelm is the last knight of Rothenburg. We knew he would need to share much of his core themes with this Doom Warrior. So basically, knights are designed to go alongside your existing companies. So if you don't want to use Wilhelm as Wilhelm and do the Wilhelm screen, which is if you don't know what that is, then you can just use this generic class knight as his miniature. Always equipped with a light weapon and shields. Movement 4, 2 attacks, which is great. The only other guy with 2 attacks right now in 1490 Doom is the Brute. 5 vitality, 6 skill, combat 3+, and defense 4+. He is a super fighty character, but don't expect him to climb or do any objectives. I once had my 6+ skill Brute sit at the side of a mountain or a cliff, trying to climb the entire game and just being a complete dummy. Shield of the Realm. Once per game, the knight can block all damage from a standard attack directed at them or an ally within 3 inches. They can just basically jump in front of an attack. This ability must be declared after a successful combat check, but before damage is dealt. It cannot block damage from special abilities. So you couldn't block damage from like the Rage ability the Brute has, or for instance from the Dirty Dagger the Scavenger has. And then Inspiring Presence. Any friendly model within 4 of the knight gains +1 to combat checks while on line of sight of the knight. And then Defender's Parry. Once per game, when an enemy falls in a combat check or fails a combat check against a knight, they may counter that attack. So basically, if you miss completely, then they can strike back. And most models only having a single attack means you'll be able to do that quite often. The enemy model takes 2 damage, and they must spend their next action picking up their weapon. So you basically slap them out of the hand. It's the bit in what's it called? The Mask of Zorro, where what's his name? Antonio Banderas is showing how he can use a sword to Anthony Hopkins, and then he just slaps the sword out of his hand. Very famous scene. And we get Wilhelm. He's a kind of zhuzhed up knight, right? He's got a better skill, more vitality, and 3 attacks. He's a supreme killing machine. Crusader's Charge. Once per game, Wilhelm can spend all his actions during a turn to move 6 inches and take 2 melee attacks, each dealing 2 damage. If at least one combat attack is successful, the target's immobilized for the next turn. And then Inspiring Presence. Any friendly model within 4 of Wilhelm gains +1 to combat checks while in line of sight of the Wilhelm. So basically, if your dog is nearby, or if anybody else, like you find an ally there nearby, they get bonuses. And then Shield of the Realm. Once per game, Wilhelm can block all damage from one standard attack directed at him. It's basically the same as the Knight ability. And then Berenger. Tom Berenger. Can't wield weapons. His bite counts as a light weapon. Move 7, 2 attacks. Vitality 5, because these are both amazing. And then 4s across the board for everything else. Loyal Guardian. If Wilhelm's vitality drops to 1, Berenger gains +1 to his combat checks. He gets mad. And then a Warden until death. Once per turn, if an enemy is within 5 inches damages Wilhelm, Berenger can move into contact, dealing a damage and push them an inch in any direction. Bonded Ascent. Berenger cannot scale alone, but can be carried by Wilhelm in base contact, remaining inactive until he disembarks. And then Animal. Cannot open doors, inspect resource caches, or use scale actions independently. They also cannot hold or acquire items or weapons. So can't do any like bonus things. And they have the campaign. I don't want to spoil too much of this, but we will go through the things you're going to need. So a lot like in games like Rangers of Shadow Deep, what you get here is you're going to get a list of the models you want to have in your collection. You don't know when you're going to use them necessarily, or like where the story's going to go, but you have to have Wilhelm and Berenger. You have to have a Castle Defender, a Castle Guard or Knight, a Bowman, and Erhard, who's the bad guy. Or sorry, not the bad guy, that's Otto. Erhard is a potential ally that you find who has a crossbow. And then Otto is the former captain of the guard. He wields a light weapon and is formidable because he's he's your betrayer. He's your Iago, right? He's the dude that's like you've left behind basically in Rothenburg. You want 6 to 8 guard models, 2 bowmen, a crossbowman, a villager, and a catapult, because you need that later. Although I do feel like that's more terrain. And then you want castle gates, castle walls, a lookout tower, central tower, some ruins, hidden passages, some village buildings, and a makeshift tower that's like falling apart. Additional rules. Anytime a model controlled by a player perishes, they are set aside. At the end of the game, roll for the fate of the fallen for each of those models. On a 1, they're a fallen hero. They've met their end. They're dead. 2, it's a crippling injury. They get a -1 movement. 3, it's diminished fortitude. The character's spirit and health have waned. -1 vitality. 4 is battle worn. -1 combat. 5 is haunted resolve. Roll 4+ before each scenario. On a fail, they start with -1 vitality. And then finally, a brush with death. No permanent damage. The character emerges unscathed and ready to fight. So that's your like post-game sequence. If you get knocked out, what happens to you? Advancement. Wilhelm and Berenger do not start with improvement points, but each game in which Wilhelm and his company is declared victors, each surviving member gains an improvement point. These points can be spent purchasing the same thing twice on a single warrior. So it can't be spent doing something twice. You can only improve people's defense like once. And then loyal beyond death. If Berenger ever rolls fallen hero on the fate, Wilhelm immediately gains 4 food. He eats his dog. This game's so dark. Oh my God. And then cooperative play, you can obviously play this with people taking command of the 2 different miniatures. And then opposed play. If you wish to play this campaign against an opponent, a player is welcome to command Wilhelm's enemies. Rather than using the focus system, the opponent helms the focus-based enemies. They use the stats provided, but can otherwise operate however they wish. So you can play it, head-to-head if you want as well. And then difficulty adjustments. You can add or reduce rounds or increase or reduce the vitality of enemies. And then scenarios. Basically, this is going to tell the story of what happens to Wilhelm. It starts at the gates. We get a lovely, if you haven't played this game before, fortunately, you just played on it's called a diorama-based miniature game. So it's played on a round table or a 2x2 board. Some bandits, a bitter harvest in Feldorf. You'll see what enemies arrive. And then once this is done, does he seek revenge against Otto, or does he focus on the supplies he needs to save Adelheid? So basically, it turns into a choose-your-own adventure. And I love this part of this book, where you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. So does Wilhelm go off to slay Otto, or does he try and save Wildheld? And in each of the scenarios, I'm not going to, I don't want to show them in too much detail, because obviously this is going to be a turning point in the mission. I don't want to talk about them too much. And then finally, there's a last stand that takes place as well. And the end. And so you get to read like the actual end of the mission if you survive or not. So, and then I don't want to necessarily spoil all that stuff, because that's kind of part of the fun of a game like this, is to be able to check it out for yourself. I will say one of my favorite things in 49 Doom though is you have a ton of resources for setting the mood and also for inspiration. So there's an immersive audio. The Book of Adrian, the Scavenger, is probably my favorite. It's very dark. And then there's a community course on Discord and stuff as well that you can go and check out. And that's it. I am broken. I was meant to protect them all and to keep them safe from anything that dared to threaten them. What use the knight's honor against enemies like this, and what use is my sword, says Wilhelm, the last knight of Rothenburg. So if you want to check out the miniatures themselves, Wilhelm and Berger are available as STLs. So there's an STL pack for these guys on the Magos, I think it's the Buer Games website. And they're $9 US. They're on sale right now. And these, of course, because you can actually use the night option in 49 Doom, they get their own profiles, which I think is neat too. So, and of course, there's all the books and stuff available as well. You can grab the core rulebook and STLs as a bundle. And that's what I did. That's actually how I got this. Was I bought the rulebook and the expansion together in one place. So far I've had a great time playing the game. I would highly recommend you guys check it out if you're looking for a head-to-head sort of like micro-skirmish game that has like an immersive sort of like that hashtag 28 kind of idea, the Blanche Itsu kind of idea. And you can see behind me, this is my table and my painted up miniatures, which I've been super stoked to play with. And we'll have a lot more of this coming up in the next couple weeks when we do the Let's Play. And after the initial 6 missions from the rulebook are done, I'll probably jump in and do this solo campaign. So there it is. Big thanks for watching. We'll see you for more GMG reviews. Until next time, I'm Ash. Have a good night.